My name is Arthur. Most people, if they know me at all, simply call me Artie. I recently turned 80 years old. 80. It is a strange number to say out loud. When you are young, 80 sounds like an eternity away, something that happens to other people, not to you. But here I am. And while my body is 80, my heart feels heavy with a lesson I only truly learned 6 months ago. I want to share a story with you. It is not a story about war or getting rich or traveling the world. It is a story about something that happened half a year ago, an event that completely shifted the lens through which I view every single second of my remaining time on this earth. 6 months ago, my best friend died. His name was William, but to me, he was always just Will. We had known each other for 57 years. 57 years of life, woven together like the threads of an old, comfortable sweater. And when Will took his last breath, a massive, vital part of my own history, a part of my own soul, died right there in that hospital room with him. But before I tell you about the end, I need to tell you about the beginning. Because to understand the magnitude of the loss, you have to understand the depth of the connection. The year was 1967. The world was changing rapidly, but for me, life was about survival and paying the rent. I was 23 years old, young, ambitious, and slightly terrified of the future. I had just landed a job at a massive industrial printing shop in Chicago. It was noisy. It smelled of oil and ink, and the machinery looked like it could eat a man alive if he wasn't careful. Will started working there the exact same week I did. We were the new guys, the rookies. I remember seeing him on that first day. He looked as nervous as I felt. We were both trying to decipher the complex instructions of the supervisor, both trying to figure out how to operate these giant presses without losing a finger in the process. The foreman, a gruff man with little patience, assigned us to the same shift. We stood next to each other for 8 straight hours that first day. The rhythm of the machines was deafening, so we barely spoke. We just worked, side by side, feeding paper, checking ink levels, wiping sweat from our foreheads. But there was a silent camaraderie forming even then in the noise and the heat. At the end of that first shift, as the whistle blew and we were wiping the grease from our hands with old rags, Will looked over at me. He had a tired smile on his face. He simply asked, "Hey, you want to go grab a cold beer?" I looked at him, exhausted but grateful for the friendly gesture, and said, "Sure." That single beer, that one small decision to say yes to a stranger after a long shift, turned into 57 years of brotherhood. Our story isn't one for the history books. We didn't climb mountains together or save the world from disaster. We were just 2 regular guys, 2 ordinary men who met at a job and decided to stick around in each other's lives. We stayed friends through the turbulence of the 60s and 70s. We stayed friends as we navigated the complexities of becoming adults. We walked through life together, through marriages that brought joy and divorces that brought pain, through the miracle of children being born and the stress of raising them, through every curveball that life decided to throw at us. Will met a wonderful woman named Martha and got married in 1969. I stood beside him at the altar as his best man, fixing his tie because his hands were shaking. 2 years later, in 1971, I married my beloved Eleanor. Will was right there beside me, returning the favor as my best man. It wasn't just us, though. Our wives, Martha and Eleanor, hit it off immediately. They became as close as sisters. We developed a tradition that lasted for decades. Every single Friday night, without fail, the 4 of us would have dinner together. Sometimes we went out to a cheap restaurant, but mostly we gathered at one of our houses. We would play cards until late in the night. We would drink coffee and just talk. There was nothing fancy about it. No expensive champagne, no exotic vacations. Just 2 couples sitting around a kitchen table, sharing the simple, beautiful act of spending time together. When I look back on those years now, From the vantage point of 80 years old, I realize just how incredibly wealthy we were. Not with money, but with connection. We were lucky. Not because we were doing anything extraordinary, but because we had found something that many people spend their entire lives searching for and never find. Steady, unwavering friendship. The kind of friendship where you don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to pretend to be smarter or richer or funnier than you are. You just show up, you sit down, and you are accepted exactly as you are. Will and I worked at that printing shop side by side for 12 long years. We saw each other every single day. We shared lunches, complained about the boss, and celebrated paydays. Then, in 1979, the economy shifted, and the shop closed down. It was a scary time. I scrambled and found work at a warehouse across town. Will got a job working for the city maintenance department. For the first time in over a decade, we didn't see each other every day. But that didn't break the bond. We still had our Friday night dinners. We still called each other whenever something big happened, or even when nothing happened at all. Life has a way of testing you, and it tested us. In 1985, my father passed away. It was sudden, and I was devastated. I remember standing at the funeral, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. I was surrounded by people offering condolences, saying the right things, but I felt completely alone. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned and saw Will. He didn't say a word. He didn't offer a cliché about my father being in a better place. He just stood there, solid as a rock. He stood next to me for the entire service. His presence was a silent anchor that kept me from drifting away into grief. That moment taught me a powerful lesson. When you are truly hurting, you don't need speeches. You don't need advice. You just need someone to stand with you in the storm. Years later, in 1992, it was Will's turn to face the darkness. His teenage son got involved with the wrong crowd and ended up in serious trouble with the law. The boy was sentenced to a year in jail. Will was heartbroken. He was a good father, a proud man, and he blamed himself entirely. He felt like he had failed. I sat with him night after night as he poured out his guilt. I told him the same thing he had shown me years before by his actions. This isn't your fault. Will, sometimes bad things happen. We just have to get through it. I stood by him while he waited for his son to come home. And eventually, his son did turn his life around. He got clean, got a job, got married, and gave Will 2 beautiful grandchildren. Will was so proud of him in the end. But getting there was a dark road, and we walked it together. The thing about friendship, true, deep friendship, is that you often don't realize its true value until you get older. When you are in your 20s, you think friends are the people you party with, the people you have fun with on the weekends. But as the years go by, the definition changes. Real friendship isn't about the fun times. Real friendship is about showing up when the fun has ended. It is about sitting with someone in absolute silence because the pain is too great for words. It is about knowing someone so intimately that you can look at their face and know they are hurting, even when they look you in the eye and say, "I'm fine." Will and I had that. After 57 years, we were more than friends. We were closer than most brothers. In some ways, we were better than brothers because we had chosen each other. We weren't bound by blood. We were bound by 1,000 shared moments and 1,000,000 small choices to stay connected. Then came the year 2008, the year my world fell apart. My wife, my beautiful Eleanor, lost her battle with breast cancer. I was 64 years old, and for the first time in nearly 40 years, I was alone in my house. My children were grown up. They had their own lives, their own families in different cities. I sat in a quiet house, surrounded by memories, feeling like my life was over. But Will was there. Every single day for the first month after Eleanor died, Will came to my house. He didn't ask if I wanted company. He just showed up, He brought food that Martha had cooked. He sat on my porch with me. He let me cry until I couldn't breathe. He never once tried to fix my grief. He never told me to move on, or that time heals all wounds. He knew those words were useless. He just let me feel what I needed to feel, and he made sure I didn't have to feel it alone. I went through a very dark period after Eleanor passed. I stopped going out. I stopped shaving. I didn't want to leave the safety of my living room. I wanted to fade away. But Will wouldn't let me. He kept showing up, knocking on my door, demanding I come out. "Come on, Artie," he would say, holding his car keys. "We're going to get some lunch. Get your coat," and I would go. Not because I was hungry, but because I knew he wasn't going to give up on me. He was the lifeline that pulled me back to the surface when I was drowning. 5 years later, in 2013, tragedy struck again. This time, it was Will's turn. Martha died suddenly of a heart attack. Will called me at 3 in the morning, his voice breaking. By the time the ambulance had arrived, she was already gone. I didn't even change out of my pajamas. I just put on a coat and drove to his house immediately. I found him sitting at his kitchen table, staring blankly at the wall. The house was too quiet. I pulled out a chair and sat down next to him. We sat there in silence for hours as the sun came up. There was nothing to say. He knew I understood. I had been exactly where he was sitting, just 5 years prior. We were 2 widowers now, 2 old men who had lost the loves of their lives, left with only each other to navigate the silence. After Martha died, Will and I started seeing each other even more frequently. The Friday dinners were gone, replaced by a new ritual. We started meeting for breakfast twice a week. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 8 o'clock sharp, we would meet at the same diner we had been going to for 20 years. We would sit in the same booth near the window. We would order the same eggs and coffee. We talked about nothing important, really. We talked about the weather. We complained about the news. We discussed how the local baseball team was failing again. It was small talk, meaningless on the surface. But in reality, it mattered more than anything. Those breakfasts gave us structure. They gave us a reason to get out of bed, shower, and get dressed. They gave us something to look forward to in a week that felt very long and very empty. As we moved into our late 70s, our conversations began to shift. We started looking backward more than forward. We talked about the past. We reminisced about the printing shop, the smell of the ink, the foreman we hated. We laughed about the stupid mistakes we made in our 30s. We talked about the people we used to know who were gone now. It wasn't a sad nostalgia. It was more like we were taking inventory of our lives. It felt like we were 2 archivists, checking the records, making sure we remembered everything correctly before the library closed for good. But then, last year, the shadows started to creep in. Will started forgetting things. At first, it was small stuff. He'd forget where he put his keys, or he'd forget the name of the waitress who had served us for a decade. We joked about it. Senior moments, we called them, but then it got worse. He would tell me a story, and then 5 minutes later, he would tell me the exact same story again, word for word, with no memory of having just said it. His daughter noticed it too. She took him to the doctor. The diagnosis was dementia. It was in the early stages, but the path was clear. I remember sitting with him after the appointment. Will was terrified. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing himself. He was afraid of forgetting who he was. I held his hand, his skin paper thin now, and told him what he had told me all those years ago about dealing with the cards we are dealt. "We'll handle it, Will," I said. "I'm here. I'll remember for both of us if I have to." The last 6 months were the hardest of our entire friendship. Will declined much faster than the doctors expected. It was aggressive. Some days, he was his old self, sharp and funny. Other days, he looked at me with a clouded expression, struggling to place my face. But I kept showing up. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I went to his house instead of the diner. I brought the coffee and the donuts. Sometimes he recognized me instantly and smiled. Sometimes he asked me who I was. It didn't matter. I was there. I wasn't going anywhere. 6 months ago, Will suffered a massive stroke. He was rushed to the hospital. He lingered for 2 days in a coma. I sat by his bedside for almost 48 hours straight. I held his hand, the same hand that had operated printing presses, held babies, and patted my shoulder at my father's funeral. I told him it was okay to let go. I told him Martha was waiting. And peacefully, he slipped away. I am 80 years old now. I have lost a lot of people in my long life. I buried my parents. I buried my wife. I have buried colleagues and neighbors. But losing Will was different. It felt like the lights went out in a room I didn't know I was standing in. You see, Will was the last witness to my life. He was the last person on this earth who remembered who I used to be when I was 23. He was the last person who knew all my stories without me having to explain the context. He was the last person who could laugh with me about a joke we made 40 years ago. When Will died, a massive library of my own history burned down. A part of my identity vanished because the person who held that reflection was gone. After his funeral, sitting alone in my quiet house, I realized something profound. For most of my life, I took our friendship for granted. I simply assumed Will would always be there. I assumed he would always be available for breakfast on Tuesday. I assumed he would always be just a phone call away when I needed to vent. I thought he was a permanent fixture, like the sun coming up, and now he is not, and I cannot get that time back. I cannot make one more phone call. I cannot share one more cup of coffee. Here is what I want you to understand listening to this video. It doesn't matter if you are 20, 40, or 60. Friends matter. I am talking about real friends. The ones who show up when the world is falling apart. The ones who know your flaws and love you anyway. Those friendships are rare. They are precious diamonds in a pile of rocks, and they require effort. They require maintenance. They require you to show up even when you are tired, even when it is inconvenient. I see people today looking at their phones, rushing around. Everyone is so busy. Everyone is so focused on their careers, their bank accounts, their own little problems. They don't make time for their friends. They cancel plans because they are too tired. They say, "We'll catch up next week," or "Let's do this later." They think they have all the time in the world. But I am here to tell you, from the finish line of life, you don't. You do not have all the time in the world. Time runs out. It runs out faster than you can possibly imagine. People die. Situations change. And one day, you might wake up and realize you are alone. And all those things you thought were so important, that overtime at work, the extra money, the clean house didn't matter at all. Will and I had 57 years together. 57 years of Fridays and Tuesdays. 57 years of phone calls. And sitting here today, I can tell you, it still wasn't enough. I still wish I had more time. I still wish I had appreciated the boring moments more while I was living them. If you have a friend, a real friend, not just an acquaintance, but someone who has walked through life with you, call them. Right now, do not wait until tomorrow. Make plans to see them. Show up at their door. Don't let your busy schedule be an excuse. Don't assume you will have time later. You might not. After Will died, I found myself replaying all the times I could have called him but didn't. All the times I stayed home because I was lazy or wanted to watch TV. All the time I wasted because I suffered from the illusion of permanence. I thought we had forever. We didn't. Nobody does. I am still here. I wake up every Tuesday and Thursday morning, and for a split second, just a heartbeat, I forget. My brain thinks, it's Tuesday, time to go meet Will. And then the reality crashes down on me. I remember he is gone. And I sit in my kitchen, brewing coffee for one, wondering what I'm supposed to do with all this time I have left without my partner in crime. My children, bless their hearts, tell me I should make new friends. They tell me to go to the senior center, join a club, play bingo. But I am 80 years old. I don't want new friends. I don't want to explain my life story to a stranger from the beginning. I want my friend. I want the guy who knew me for 57 years. I want the one who understood my silence. You don't replace a bond like that. You can't. You just learn to live with the massive hole it leaves in your landscape. So here's my advice to you, and I mean this with every ounce of wisdom my 80 years has given me. Do and take your people for granted. Don't assume they will be there next year. Don't put off that lunch date. Make the time. Be present. Put down your phone when you are with them. Look them in the eye. Listen to their stories. Because one day, that chair across from you will be empty. And all you will have left are the memories you made and the regret for the time you didn't use. Will taught me a lot over the years. He taught me how to fix a car engine. He taught me how to be patient. But mostly, he taught me how to be a friend. How to listen without judging. How to show up without being asked. Now that he is gone, I am trying to honor him by living that way. I try to be kinder. I try to be more present. Not to replace him, but to carry his legacy forward. If you have someone in your life who has been there through the storms, tell them you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. Don't wait for a special occasion. The fact that you are both alive today is the special occasion. Pick up the phone, send the text, go see them. Life is terrifyingly short, and the people we love don't stick around forever. I miss Will every single day. I miss our boring conversations about the weather. I miss his laugh, but I am grateful. I am so incredibly grateful that out of all the people on this planet, I got to spend 57 years with a friend like that. I am grateful for every burger we ate, every card game we played, every tear we shed. And I am grateful that I got to be there at the end, holding his hand, just as he had held me up so many times before. That is what real friendship is. It is simply being there, in the good times, in the bad times, and in the final times. So if this story touched something in you, please reach out to someone you care about today. Make the effort. And if you found some value in an old man's rambling, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below. Tell me about your best friend. Tell me about the people who matter to you. I have a lot of time on my hands now, and I read every single comment. I would love to hear your stories. Thank you for listening.
That is what real friendship is. It is simply being there, in the good times, in the bad times, and in the final times. So, if this story touched something in you, please reach out to someone you care about today. Make the effort. And if you found some value in an old man's rambling, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below. Tell me about your best friend. Tell me about the people who matter to you. I have a lot of time on my hands now, and I read every single comment. I would love to hear your stories. Thank you for listening.